Today's episode is not sugarcoated. We're diving into one of the most overlooked and most important parts of running a business: contracts. I sat down with Kimberly to talk about what it really means to protect your work, ensure you get paid, and avoid the stress of chasing clients. This is an honest and real conversation rooted in real experiences, lessons learned, and why having an ironclad agreement can change everything. If you've ever been burned in business, this one's for you.
Mompreneurs, it's not business, baby. It's business and babies. Whether you're rocking the carpool line, building your business during nap time, or dreaming big after bedtime, we've got the tools, tips, and strategies to help you grow your business. Grab a snack, your headphones, and enjoy this time with us, because mom life and boss life deserve balance.
I think we should just have like a conversation between entrepreneur and entrepreneur. But I had this one client, a coaching client, and I guess it depends on how much they're invested in the outcome, right? Of what they're hiring you for. And the thing about it is, thank God I had a solid contract that said, hey, this is a 3-month time frame. These are how many sessions are happening within these 3 months. And so I was able to be like, you know what, and I also had like a rescheduling fee. If you need to reschedule, it's going to be this price. You get what I'm saying? Because if it wasn't for that contract, then the complaints can happen. Oh, but it was their fault. They booked a meeting, rescheduled it, and gave me like same day, said, oh, I need to reschedule it. I rescheduled it, misses that meeting, does not tell me nothing. And I have to follow up like, hey, what's going on? Oh, no, send me the link for the next, for the meeting or whatever. So I had to be like, hey, you kind of forfeit this meeting because it's supposed to be in this time frame. We can do the additional meetings, but
Right.
it's going to be an additional cost for that because it does say on the contract, like it's going to be per what's available on my calendar. And because of, I guess the way that God has been blessing my business, I've been getting more clients. So my schedule is pretty much, I can't move my schedule too much. Like you were talking about, right? In the beginning of your business, you have more leeway, you have more, you can be more flexible. But when things are picking up and business are picking up, I don't think that people understand that with service providers or coaches, when they're taking your time, hey, this is a little bit inflexible, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be maybe, a couple of months from now that we'll even be able to, come back again about this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Not only that, like you really have to like, and this is where I'm at, right? And so this is where my brain does. So I think any person who's listening to this, I don't know if they know me. Hi, I'm Kim Graham. I'm a money mastery coach. We didn't even do introduction. So hey, what's up?
Which is
Welcome
new
to our
type of
conversation.
podcast. No, but I already got you on the podcast.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Also off of the Facebook Live, so people are going to know you. So we're just having a conversation between mom entrepreneurs and other mom entrepreneurs on the things that we face in entrepreneurship. Since we're vibing like that already,
Yeah.
might as well go with the current.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where we're dealing with, right? As entrepreneurs. And I think it's important to note, right? So here's my background here. I started the beginning of the year and it was not like things were kind of like, I'm not going to say, no, they were slow. Let's just be real with it, right? Like things were slower. Things were kind of like, I had my clients and I was getting a client here, there, everywhere. Let me just tell you the nightmare of a February that I had. Okay.
Yeah.
March has picked up beautifully. And so I can be on the other side of it and go, oh my gosh, everything is fantastic. It was so great. But like when you're in it, like I'm just going to share this cautionary, not even a cautionary tale. Some of it is, but also just like, this is entrepreneurship. I had to have this God conversation where I thought, God, why are you doing this to me? And I had this realization where it's not God, it's business. Like God isn't putting me through this like hardship just to be like, I'm teaching you a lesson over and over again. It is literally just, this is business. So learn to roll with the punches, learn to be consistent, have the systems in place so that you can have these times and not be wavering, right? Anyway, So February, you just talked about a client and why you have to make sure that your contract is ironclad. I had a client that came to me. We had worked really well, did some really great winning things. It was fantastic. In January, I couldn't get a hold of her. After the holidays, I was like, hey, let's get back on a call. Let's get back on the horse. Like, how you doing? She was sick. I said, okay, that's fine. Let's reschedule. No big deal. And didn't reschedule a call. Meanwhile, her payment has been due and she did not pay her bill for the next 30 days after the fact. In between that time, my assistant and I both exhausted resources that we could have been using to get another client to ensure that she was A, healthy and alive. Two, are you going to continue? Three, you have a bill due, right? And finally, we got on a call and she said, well, I found another program that has to do with something very similar to what you do, and I liked it better. That has nothing to do with me. I'm happy. I thought we did a lot of stuff together, but communication is vital. You didn't communicate that you were A, unhappy, B, that you needed something different. I didn't have a chance to even try and like put in my hat in the ring and say, hey, here's this is great. This is what we could do. And this is the thing about having an ironclad contract and making sure that you're very clear in your boundaries, because that went on way too long. And I learned several things from that experience. And that's one, autopay. Autopay is a given. You must pay autopay. I think I gave too many people a little bit of leeway. Like I said, I was like, okay, it's fine, no big deal. Like if you need an extra week or so, no problem. No, not anymore.
Yeah, no,
It has to be autopay or paid in full.
I actually have a template of one of my other contracts in Dubsado because I use Dubsado to send out contracts, invoices, and keep track of emails, which is amazing because sometimes I get too many emails. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like differentiating personal emails because everything comes into my Gmail. Yes, I have my business email, but I have it like funnel into my Gmail because it's on my phone and I don't want to connect the other stuff. You know how that goes, right? Logistics.
Yeah.
And so I had this one client, she's a makeup artist. And what she said, yeah, Linda, sometimes what I do is I have them have a credit card on file. Like she will have them fill out her form. She does not do anything. So I have one of them that's a template with that they can have a credit card on file. And it's gonna pretty much throw up red flags if the client doesn't want to put their credit card on file. I haven't had any I take payments up front, so I haven't had anything because I learned that in the beginning of my business when I did payment plans. Woo! No bueno. No bueno.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah. No,
the thing is, like, I feel like with lots of different service providers. So I work in the financial industry, right? And a lot of the women who are coming to me are making money, but they're already feeling strapped, right? Like, I know I'm making money, but where is it going? And so we always come into the biggest hurdle I have whenever I'm onboarding a client or connecting with a client and they're like, I love what you do, that they're like, okay, I know I need to pay you this much, but where is it going to come from? Meanwhile, any other situation that they've ever had emergency wise, or if they're investing in their business, what do they use? Their credit card without a thought. They're like, yeah, let's do it. But whenever there's an emotional shift that happens when they're like, I'm going to be better with my money. This time I'm going to use my actual cash, but I don't know where my cash is going. There's always this, like, I have to kind of like help them with their mindset. Like, what would you do in another situation? Just use it and let's get in there so I can support you and help you. My job is to help you make money. My job is to help you find the cash flow, right? So rest assured, that's going to happen, especially if you already know and believe there's money out there. I just don't know where it's going, right?
Right.
So
I think it's like stewarding. Yeah. Go ahead. And all that to say.
All of that to say, it's just, that has always been, I think, as an empath, my business I've built on, okay, I want to make it easier for the person to say yes, right? So we start with the payment plan. And I think where now I'm shifting to the point where let's just pay full. I'd much rather use the credit card so that we can go ahead and just start moving rather than you going, oh man, I still have to pay that I still have to pay that payment, right? So
right.
Yeah, it's just,
now we don't have to, now because of things that have changed, right? We have Klarna, we have companies like Behalf. I don't know if you heard of that company. We have other companies that actually provide a payment plan that they deal with the payments.
Yes.
So I think as business owners, I think it's putting those things in place and setting up our client our afterpay or however you want to go, that you don't have to deal with the logistics, because for whatever reason, when it comes to service providers, or how people treat us sometimes, right, as coaches or service providers, or when we're doing that one-on-one time, people can treat our invoices like a second thought, like it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned that really early on in my business. And if I do want to work with someone and budget is kind of like an issue, sometimes what I do is kind of like I put, well, there's going to be a big deposit and then the remainder can be on that payment plan, but I'm not going to chase after that money. I'm going to be set up reminders and stuff like that. But if that's a loss, is a loss. So I kind of do a deposit that I'm just like, okay, it's not going to be the total loss. And it'll be a blessing if they actually do. And that has worked beautifully for me when they
That's good.
up from that big deposit. So that deposit, I'm not talking about 500 or nothing like that. I'm not talking about it's like in the, in the 1,000 and above deposit for their package, just because I have seen more success with that. And if they do burn, right? Like this particular client, they had a big deposit up front, right? Projects for 3 months, right? I was able to cut like, hey, you know what? If you want to continue, then the remainder of this balance needs to be paid, because they pretty much just kind of like a little bit disrespected my time.
Yeah.
My time mattered. And I'm like, I could have easily put that slot for someone that is paying, that would take my advice, my expertise a bit more seriously. So I think that's kind of like, sometimes we have to put certain things in place. What do we regret? Like, shoot, I know if I'm going to do a payment plan, $200 a month to get to accomplish the overall, the total of the invoice is not going to cut it for me. Gonna, and it's not going to cut it for the person either, because it's so long. Like the project's already been done. They're already 6 months in and they're still paying this. They're not seeing the value. You get what I'm saying, at that moment in time.
Right. They might have gotten that value at the very beginning when you were
right, and they were
6 months
excited.
later.
Yes, yes, I'm going to do this in that time. They thought, like in the future, yeah, I'm totally going to be paying this off because it's amazing right now. And that's like gratification, right? And then they're paying. Now it hurts. Now it hurts to pay, right? After that time. So I learned that. I remember I had, in the beginning of my business, I was starting my web design. I had someone on that payment plan and it was a nightmare. They were a nightmare client, very picky on a lot of things. I was just like, what is this? Out of scope. So that's why I do my contracts now, Ironclad. And let them know that it's Ironclad. I say, hey, by the way, XYZ, please value my time. I'm going to value your time. Let's give each other at least a couple of days, 3 days minimum. Because people usually know, unless an emergency happened, like, okay, that's fine, but let me know. Don't just ghost, right?
Exactly. That part, right? Because I think we're human, right? Like we're human, we're moms. I get it. Kids get sick, schedules come in, and that's totally fine. And honestly, like in this particular situation, and this is one thing I said when we had our call, and I was like, if you would have told me, at the beginning, when you got close to the bill and that you're getting emails and reminders that this is coming up, and that you were in the right space to pay it, or if you had some questions or you were feeling iffy about it, that was the time to come to me, because I'm a human person, right? If you were like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, can we get on a call? I'd like to just like have a conversation before I pay this. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Right.
We could have made an adjustment. But if I hadn't done the work of chasing you down, which was really like annoying, when would you have come to me? Because it was over a month after the fact. So I just want to give encouragement to anyone's listening. If you're just starting a business, like I've been in business for this business particularly for 6 years almost, this particular business. You're still going to learn things that are going to change in different like phases of your business.
Oh yeah. And you're going to add things to your contract.
Yep.
Because that happened. Let me have this disclaimer in there.
And now you know why you go to some coaches, or you even go to some like places, right? Establishments, and you read like their terms and conditions, and you're like, why is that in there? That they say that because they've gone through something, and they're like, no, I'm going to make sure it's in there because they've gone through a situation, and it caused them to have it on their contract. And that's the same thing that happens in your business as well. So that, people can respect your time and you can make sure that you're not out,
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I've learned you have to have the mindset that you have to respect yourself first before anyone else.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, what I love about ChatGPT is that you can go hardcore, write out the email you want to send, like, hey, this is very disrespectful, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
ChatGPT will make it beautiful, like very nice,
Very nice, respectful.
very nice email, right?
So demure. We love
So you
ChatGPT.
can just be like, just iron out what you need to say to the client, right? Like, hey, da, 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 da. You don't even have to, make it beautiful or pretty. Though you don't got to think about that. Just you can be really, really direct in your email. Upload that thing into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will spit out a beautiful, non-confrontational email, right? That it's just professional and everybody feels good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Because
know?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business. At the end of the day,
Right.
that's what it is. It's business to business owner. You got to be thinking about that. And so I think, um, I just think sometimes as women, especially if we're really focusing on women, sometimes we can put that in the in front of it and go, oh, well, I'm thinking about their situation. And so like for me, I know my empathy gets in the way and I'm like, oh, well, I feel bad. But I'm like, no, I'm a business owner and they're a business owner. And if someone did this
Right.
to them, they would be livid.
Good. Livid.
They would be livid. So
I
I
think-
have every right to
Yeah.
feel this way.
Yeah. I remember I remember I was sitting down with a client. We were going over kind of like the deliverables because, if you do not sit down and talk about deliverables and talk about expectations, and then the project goes on for a couple of weeks, you're done. Because
Yeah.
something is going to be some miscommunication somewhere. Oh, I thought XYZ. Like, no, that's kind of out of project. I thought was included. You can go into that. So what I do is I have everything in the contract and I also have everything in the invoice.
Oh,
Just to double
smart.
down.
Yeah.
Just to double down. This is exactly what you're getting in the invoice, as well as the contract. And then also having that conversation, that onboarding conversation, like, hey, all right, because if they throw something, and like I remember one time we had to kind of like edit this one thing. And I said, well, just to let you know, I can, there's not going to be any more revisions on this because then we won't be able to have the deliverables that you're expecting. Right. So,
Yeah.
if you see anything coming alongside, like, okay, wait, the project can be a little bit behind because they're adding something else on that's not on the project. We're doing an extra revision. We're doing an extra thing. We're doing an extra stuff. Like before they even engage in that, instead of you saying, yeah, I can do that extra step because, we want to be people pleasers, right? We want to like make sure the client is happy. But if you know that if doing that extra step is going to require you more time that can lag the project, say it up front. Hey, you know what? My concern is we're not going to be getting, these deliverables on time. So it might be an additional rush fee for XYZ. In order for those deliverables to be on, because then the working on the weekend to get that extra thing, it will be worth it because our family time is so important, right? As mom entrepreneurs, like I know I want to close down my laptop at 2:30. And that leaves me, only a few hours from drop off time, me reaching my office to the time, and sometimes I'm even working through lunch.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spend another minute on my computer than I have to. And then, and then you're in there, you're in your dining room table, you're on your laptop, your hubby's trying to help you with lunch or dinner. Your kids are wanting your attention and time, but because you agree to that deliverable, knowing that it might push it back, even if it's an inkling that it might push certain things back, but you're like, oh, I got to deliver this because, the client, it's better to have that conversation up front. So you're also setting your boundaries straight.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, going back to what we said even before we got on and started recording, we were talking about how Q1, for me, started off a little bit slower and now it's ramping up. There's a lot of opportunities coming in. There's a lot of influx of clients coming in. And now I'm like, not rethinking. And but I'm just like, okay, what are my boundaries? What are the things I have to be prepared for? Because same thing, I have my baby at home. Like we're at nap time right now. This is crunch time for me to get work done. There are certain days when I can work longer, but I don't want to be doing that every single day. So like, what are my boundaries? What are my deliverables? What do I want to be able to say to these clients so that they are very clear as to how they can connect with me? And I'm very clear about after this
Your
time,
hours of operation.
I'm out of operation, because it's easy. Again, when you have less clients, it's kind of easy to fudge that. Oh, I just have one client. I'll just answer this question really quick, right?
Right.
But when you have an influx of 15, you
Right.
can't be doing that. That's a lot of work.
That's the problem where I'm at.
Yeah.
Around that much clients, from my services, from tech support to one-on-one clients to coaching clients and all of that. And if you don't have systems, what I did was, in order for my schedule, I have 3 days that I block off completely. Like, no one can get on my calendar on those 3 days. So I have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That Friday, it's pretty much empty. Sometimes I need a downtime. I need a rest.
Yeah.
Luteal phase or whatever phase I'm on.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I need to just rest before I even go into the weekend, because sports and all this, even during the week, right? We're in the sport now with baseball and soccer and softball. So,
You gotta put on your other hat, right? Like,
so now I see my calendar. I can see what I can realistically book for my clients, instead of them just booking whatever day. No. I got control of my calendar, that I said, hey, which day is good for you? And then I'll send you some dates that will open up or something like that. Or I do it right on the call. Like, let's go ahead and schedule your time with me. What's good for you? And then I go ahead and schedule that right away. And then I know, I have some free days that people like discovery calls and stuff like that, and podcast calls. I have those days, like Tuesday, where on Tuesday, that's one of my days that I take on additional meetings.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like, it's very important to block off your calendar and don't just leave it open. Block off the CEO days, then block it off for maybe your content, your content calendar, your client work, and then your admin day or something like that, right? So that has worked so beautifully with me right now, because I used to fly by the seat of my pants. Like, where can I squeeze this client in?
Yeah. Like, between my life and all the other stuff I've heard, and there's so many different ways to do that. So I love that you said Monday, Wednesday, Friday are like, you don't work necessarily client facing days on those days. That's when you're doing back office work and you're doing CEO days.
Well, sometimes I will squeeze a client there, like if I know that a client, like those would be like, okay, my VIP day or one-on-one, but I get to control that instead of having my calendar completely open, right? And then I can see the capacity. How long would this client work? Okay, it's a coaching call. I know that's going to be like an hour and a half. Right.
Yeah.
Because we go in, we go in deep, and I try to, in that call as well, and providing all the assets, all the things that they need within that call. Right. So it's kind of like understanding, like, how long does it take you to do a task, whether it's coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah. Those money-making activities are important to kind of have at the top of your head. So, but what I meant by saying that is that, like, I love that you have that calendar, kind of that control. I've heard some people even do something along the lines of, they have one whole week a month that they don't take anything client facing. Like, it's just 1 week a month, could be in the middle, where they're like, nope, this is not where I'm doing it. So then they're able to like split up their months. Right. And then have that middle week where there's no client calls. They're just working on back office. That's when they work on that. And that's when they batch. But
I feel like emotionally that will scare me. I don't know why. Like, that whole 1 week. What?
Yeah. But I mean, it's the same difference, right? Yeah. Like they're just saying, instead of having like my whole week or like 3 days a week, they're just like off. They would much rather, and I think it really has to do with your learning style. They would much rather go hard in the paint and be like, nope, I'm working for those 2 weeks. I'm getting stuff done.
Not me, man. I'll take a vacation. I'll probably Netflix if I had that week.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's what it's there for, right?
Oh, that's what it's
still. And but you also get to, I feel like, even that you can think about how that would actually do for your mentally, if you're able to say, for this week, I don't have to feel like I have to be on.
Oh, you know what? I think it's also capacity, right? Like stamina. Like for me, that's why I have my Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, because I need downtime after a meeting.
Yeah.
I need downtime after like a big, chunk of work. I just need to say that if I choose to lay on the couch, I can,
Yeah. For me, that was Fridays. And then Fridays started to get eaten up. And I was like, no. So now it's Wednesdays. Wednesdays are those days for me.
Yeah, because you can get a flow too. Like I'm starting to get kind of like a flow. And, it's almost like running a marathon, not a sprint, right? So you start getting a pace, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I know I'm gonna have downtime here, so I can take a little break over here. You start pacing yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's a learning process. How do you feel about in the vein of like when you start getting more clients, do you ever, because this is one of the things that I have to like stop myself from doing,
Mm.
even before the clients even come in, my brain goes, okay, what if more clients come in? What is my process? Do I create something new for them? I know yours might be a little bit different because you're very active and like creating things for your clients. For me, because I most of the time when it comes to their finances, I'm working on it alongside them or I'm doing it for them.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of like coaching, to kind of get them to the place they want to be financially. But if I'm at capacity in terms of Zoom calls and all that stuff, but there's still people who want to work with me and I still want to sell, I'm like, okay, well, what could I offer? Could I offer a membership? Could I offer this? And then my brain goes off and creates something brand new that was not part of my initial offer suite. And I had to control and rein that in the first like couple years of business because then I would have a million offers.
Right. So I do have a membership. But the thing about it is usually my one-on-one clients are not in my membership, right?
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and then some of them are that need a little bit more support, especially if they're just starting, just beginning, and that's what the membership is for. But usually when someone wants to work with me and stuff like that, what I do is kind of like, okay, this is the time frame, right? Like it's gonna be a couple of months out, right? You're like, I'm booked up right now, but we have a couple of months out that this can be done, XYZ. If you want to, but I'll prepare them for that,
Yeah.
right? So they can either come into the community and get the assets that they need, or start preparing, like, hey, this is everything that I need from you in order for us to be ready on that day when we sit down on that day. Because I have like a 3 hour that we are designing together hand in hand and going over strategy or going over something that we're doing, and then I can do other things like take care of the rest. And then we have another follow-up meeting, right? Where it's
Mhm.
all delivered.
It's one of those things where, and I mean, I was like notorious for doing that. Like I
Oh,
would be like, all right, I just want to create something else because I want to serve them. There's a different way I can serve them. I can just do, a massive Zoom call with like 40 people in there or something like that. And that's what I'll do. And wait, that'll be an offer that I can sell. And that's what my content revolves around. And when I notice myself kind of going off into that like vein, I'm like, no, no, no. What you have is fine.
yeah.
Don't leave or deviate from your core offer. If you're booked right now, be booked. Still talk about it and tell people, look, I'm booked and busy. Isn't that beautiful? You can talk to me at this time and you can put down deposits
That's what, yeah, I did the
or
whole
whatever
deposit.
so that you can get
Absolutely.
ready.
It was pay in
Um,
full right now.
yeah, you can pay in full right now and be ready for it. And I can
Yeah.
support you in this way.
If you do great work and people will save up for you, people
Yeah.
will, I remember I sat down with a potential client and I don't know if I had my service, like my pricing on my page or not. I forgot, but I usually try to always have it on my page. And they were like, "Oh, how much is it?" I'm like, "Well," and I was booked. And I was like, "Well, it's this
Yeah.
price." And da da da. They actually saved up.
During that time.
Yeah. And then when they came back, and during the time that I was a little bit more open, I'm like, all right, let's get you scheduled in.
Yeah, those are
But
beautiful.
yeah, so people will save up for you. So don't be afraid to stick to your prices. Because when you're booked, you stick to your like, hey,
Yeah.
right? This is my prices and stuff like that. And when you're a little bit more like, so I've learned to, unless it was like an exciting project, I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
but I've learned that people usually have more than what they let on. Because I remember there was a project, I sat down with someone, I was in a networking event, and then later on, she came to me, she's like, yeah, I have this website, this is the problem. And I quoted her, and it was, well, and on the call, they tell you, don't quote your people on the call. I actually do that. I quote people on the
Yeah.
call. Her eyes were huge. It bulged out because it was a 5K project. I saw her eyes bulge, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's going to be 5K, da 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 da. And I'll send you a proposal. She booked, even though
Yeah.
her eyes went huge and everything. Don't take, like, when you're on a call, don't take people's like facial expressions, like, what it is that they're thinking, like, oh, it's going to be too much. Well, I can lower it. I've learned never to do that, never to lower prices, because as soon as you lower your price, people start devaluing your service. Like
Right.
you don't
Right.
treat it as well as if you just stuck to your prices. And you want people to show up. You want them to give you what what it is that you need from them, and you to give them the results that they've, hired you for, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it makes so much it is a lot when you have like a book. When you're booked, it's easier to stick to those prices because you're like, people have already paid it and they're getting results and you want those results.
And so those instances actually showed me like, oh my goodness, don't ever assume, another person's pocket.
You
That's your, and let them make the decision on their time. When you send over that proposal, it's up to them to say yeah or no. And I love taking it off the table. Like, you know what? I don't think this is for you.
Yeah.
Because it obviously it's not for you at this time. And sometimes you'd be surprised that is sometimes it's just like they're seeing what they can get as well, right? They're like, oh, I wonder. Because if you're too quick to like if you say, oh, I'll work on your budget, they throw you the budget, and you're like, okay, I can do it with that. They'll start trying to lower that, like that was too easy.
That was too easy. So what about this? Could you do this for this much? Could you do this much? Yeah, I've noticed that like when it comes to something like that, I have to make sure that even in the conversations that I have, I'm like, here's the time frame that I can give you with this amount of money that you're willing to invest, and this is what you're going to get. If you want more, then that's the reason why I quoted you with the initial offer. So they're able to see like the value, like, oh, I'm paying for strategy. I'm paying for, and I think that sometimes can be difficult in service-based providers because a lot of our work is invisible, right? Meaning like we're doing work sometimes on the back end. They might not see that. They're seeing the product and they think that looks easy. It's not easy. You're paying for the expertise and the speed in which I can do that and convey that information. So if you have a bigger project and I quote you a 5-figure offer, a 5-figure price, and I say, this is how much it's going to be, then you have to think about it that way. And that's where you have to just like convey the value. So a lot of times what I'll do in that conversation is if they're like, this is the only, I only have a budget for this much. Okay, well then you're going to get a lot less value or less time from me. All I can do. That way they're able to see like, oh, okay, that's why I'm paying the amount that I'm paying.
And you know what a lot of people don't talk about too is kind of like in the beginning of your business, it's okay to work with a person's budget, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a certain level that you'll get into your business that you understand the value of your time, your business is, you understand like what you can do, what you can't do, and where your time can be served. So sometimes if you're just getting your feet wet, your feet in the door, yeah, you can start off with
whatever
that
you get
to build up your portfolio and your reputation, right? Just because people don't talk about that point, there are certain projects and maybe you absolutely know that you can kill it, you can like do an amazing job. And maybe that the budget is kind of like a deterrent or, something like that. But you have to make sure that whatever deposit you allow them to have, in is worth it for you on your end, that you're not taking the majority of the risk, that it is not a risk for you, that is just an opportunity for you to serve in the capacity that you're able to serve. That's how I looked at it. And, when I have like for example, I had that new service, right? That I've currently pushing a new service that my clients are, that I'm getting clients in, right? I'm starting at a certain price point that is probably lower than the competition that is out there because it's something that I'm building out, right? And I remember I pitched a person, I was like, listen, this is something new. And I let them know this is something new. That's why it's this price point, just tell me, your budget, what this is where I learned this from. Tell me your budget. They're like, oh, well, my budget's going to be da da da. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Right. Came to the meeting. Then she was trying to lowball me because it was too easy, right? Like, you know what? I usually charge XYZ because I already had a client on that package. I'm like, this is the price, but I want to work with you on this one. So that's why I said, but and then I actually took it off the table. I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's not right for you at this time. Maybe later on. She signed right away. You sometimes gotta pull back the offer in order to protect yourself. Like maybe it's not for, and let them know maybe it's not for you at this time. I mean, we can always do this next month, or we can always do this when you're ready, financially ready, right?
Yeah.
And that's like how you were saying, like you gotta convey the value, and you gotta understand certain sales psychology as well. Like they're also trying to get a deal.
Yeah, right. And you're trying to be like, nope, like I want to help you. Like we're trying to have a win-win situation. So I hear you, I see you, you know what I mean? No, but I love that, right? That's a good example for anyone listening to this. If you're just starting out, like there are opportunities where you just need to get that experience. But once you know, that
Right.
you know that you can,
Yeah, people will save up for you. Like,
people will save up. Yes. And if you need help with the mindset of this, as you're like having more calls and you're like, oh man, I feel like in the last couple calls, I like I went with the low ball offer because I was just desperate, or I was like, no, 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 let me just go ahead and get that client. I went, a really great mindset thing that I do, because as an empath, I will lean into a sob story, and I have to remember, nope, I'm a business owner. I know that my results are really amazing and they're
I
working.
don't lean into sob story because nobody leans into your sob story. Like, as a
That's so
service
true.
provider, no one
That's
cares about your sob story. They just care about it being done.
That's
Like,
true. That's so true. They're like, I don't really care that you get kids at home. Do my work. So what I do is I write down like the clients that I've just recently worked with in the past 6 months, and I'll write down what wins they had, right? So I think about the fact that I have a client who was able to, invest more in her 529 for her kids. She was able to save upwards of 6 months for her emergency fund. She was actually able to have clarity as to where her money was going, right? So I break down all of those numerical like wins that this person has had. And I like weigh that with like how much they invested, and the ROI is like far exceeding because it's continuous, right? And I'm like, yeah, no, this is what I'm worth, right? Like I absolutely should pay this much, charge this much. So like that's a really great mindset to have. One of my coaches loved to have her name was Jenny, and she had an I Love Jenny book. It was literally engraved, I love Jenny. And she would write in it all the like things that she did for her clients, so that when she was right before a sales call, she would read through it or she would just have it up as a self-like reminder. I'm a really amazing business owner and I get really great results.
I remember in the beginning, I didn't like leaving the table with nothing, like them like, oh, that's too much. And because of my experience of lowballing myself and trying to do the budget thing, I learned I don't thrive well. I don't thrive well with chasing after, someone's, invoice. I don't thrive as a business owner. So that's why I kind of like in the beginning kind of like had that ironclad of like, unless it was like an exciting project or something like that, that I was like, ooh, this win-win. And like, there was no losses kind of thing. But anyways, I would stick to like, okay, but I didn't like the feeling of not serving someone, right? Or having like another, like how you were talking about like that offer. So I did develop kind of like, well, you can DIY it for $37, right? So I developed a course. Yeah, I developed a course, and it allowed me, and I saw it wasn't about the price. It wasn't about because they would never buy the $37. It was like, it's $37 you can do on your own, but you're doing it on your own. But I walk you through it on how to do it on your own. But they would not purchase that. So I knew that it wasn't the price.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It was just something that was holding them back on it for whatever reason. But that's none of my business, right? They say the back of my head is none of my business. What's going on back there?
Yep. None of my business, right? So, no, I 100%. There's a reason why people don't go for the $37 offer, because they know they need someone right there strategizing with them. So it has nothing to do with your offer.
One-on-one. They see the value of that one-on-one. So that was shocking when I was like, oh, this is a bit shocking.
Yeah.
Would it invest, on a 37? I'm like, it's gonna give you a beautiful website, like on this offer. Like it's me walking you through, but they want someone else to do it for them, but a very, very cheap, unreasonable price, right?
Right. So have fun looking for that. And when you
like, okay, so you value your time, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Into perspective of like, okay, why wouldn't you value my time then?
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it's so good to have that. You gotta hype yourself up. Like you are, listeners, all
like the thing about
fantastic business owners.
Usually the lower, this is what I've experienced. Like usually those projects that you have to like lowball yourself or, do a payment plan or how have you, they waste more of your time than it would be, when they waste your time kind of like emotionally, you don't feel valued. I don't know about you, but I kind of like I don't feel valued. Like, man, do you even care about my time? They don't give you everything on time when it's supposed to. They go ghost. They can,
and they can do that.
They can
go ghost.
They can go ghost. And so I want to avoid, because I'm very sensitive. Maybe, I don't know if I'm an empath or whatever, but I am very sensitive and those things hurt my feelings. So I'd rather protect my feelings so I can show up for my business the best possible way. than having to deal with the emotional turmoil of like, why aren't they responding to my email? And then you go into self-doubt.
Oh my
How
gosh.
are you going to thrive in business with that?
I don't
But
know.
someone pays your price, pays it on full, does not argue with you, shows up beautifully because they've invested, so they're invested, and you able to do like, yeah, I got this. I know I'm going to set them up. I'm so grateful that they trusted me with this investment. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but that's how I feel. I'm like, I'm so glad that I even tell them, thank you so much for trusting me. No, they're like, thank you. This has been a major blessing. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's
Yeah. Those are the best.
everybody has good feels all around. So with the prices and the price points and stuff like that's a blessing. That feels
That's a
great.
huge blessing. Yeah.
And then you're able to like, okay, what can I do with my business? Because boom, those people take advantage of your time that you're not able you're dealing with self-doubt, you're dealing with all this negativity. Then when it comes to a day that you're working on your admin stuff, you can't because you're all down emotionally. You're not able to strategize. So that's why it's better to wait on that dream client sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Just wait on it, market so you can spend your time, okay, your systems, your foundations, and stuff like that. Really make your stuff ironclad that when you do have that dream client come in, it just flows beautifully and you get a bunch of referrals.
Yeah, exactly. Because those types of clients are the clients that are going to sing your praises everywhere and be
Oh
like, oh, you got
yeah.
to make sure that you hire them, right? And those are the ones that you are worth waiting for. And we're all going to have those experiences where we're like, oh, missed the mark on that one. But instead of like beating yourself up, which is so easy, I feel like for us, especially if you're a people pleaser slash empath slash sensitivity, whatever you want to call it,
Sorry,
learn from it, learn from it and just be like, okay, this is what I know I don't want. I don't want to experience this feeling again. So what do I need to do? What do I need to say? What do my systems need to look like so that I can make sure that I'm protecting myself and can be at the best of my ability in terms of how I can, you know, give product, right? And
Yeah.
serve.
But like you were saying, I like your mindset of what you said is kind of like, all right, if it's going to be a lower budget, then these things are going to be taken off. So either
Yeah.
take things off or take it completely off the table because sometimes it's not going to be worth it, right? Especially those minimal like payment. I'd say don't do that, girl.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, I'm at that point, and I just think that the reason why is simply because of the nature of work. And that might be a mindset thing that I'm working through too, to assume that people who need my support in finances, and this is something we can all be so in our head about our own profession. We're like, oh, well, it's going to be really hard. And so I should make sure that my prices are lower because blah, 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 because I see so much uh in my profession, right? Of people who are coming to me and are needing this much financial support and are, in turmoil about it. You don't want to work with someone who is so emotionally inept that they are unable to see how their actions have some maybe solved or I shouldn't say solved, have got them into the place that they're at. And if they're not willing to like come like to terms with that and be like, no, I'm ready to make the shift. This is where I'm at. It's not going to be worth it to you because you're going to be chasing, you're going to be pulling, you're going to be overly exerting yourself emotionally, trying to bring them to the table and change habits that they're not ready to change. So if you're in a service providing space like that, where you're dealing with emotions and you're dealing with all of that stuff, you got to have those boundaries ironclad because of those reasons.
And sometimes pricing is that boundary.
Yeah.
Sometimes pricing is that boundary, that someone can show up and you're doing them a disservice if you don't have your boundaries in place because that also like if people need to save up for you or if you have your price point in a certain kind of like I guess high ticket quote unquote, but it also allows them to like, ooh, get excited about the project, get excited about what it is that they're doing, be there now they've emptied their cup in a sense and they're ready to receive your expertise the right way. And it makes it worth it for both sides. Like, like
Yeah.
for example, I coach women entrepreneurs as well, especially in their business. And I've seen two types, maybe three, two types of personalities online when it comes, when it comes into coaching, right? There's the one that they're stuck, but they don't want to change nothing. They're not ready to change anything. And usually those are the low ballers.
Mhm.
you know how they say the abundance mentality. I don't even think it's an abundance mentality. It's almost like they're just holding on to what they know, and they're afraid to take that leap of faith. So it's a fearful mentality. It's like,
Right.
ooh,
Or they've been burned before and they're just afraid to trust, right?
but when I'm sitting down and we're talking about certain things, like for example, there was one woman in my membership we were working on. It was like in the beginning when I was doing some of these cohorts, you know, and getting to know my members, getting to know if this is what I want to do, getting to know if this is going to be impactful for them. There was one member that she did not want to upgrade the visual aspects of her website. She wanted to stay because her current web person, right? She had a great relationship with them that she was paying and everything like that, right? In the monthly thing. I'm like, some people are not ready to prune off things that are holding them back and changing things like, you know, what they say, if you insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta prune away from what used to work and go into something new. And
Yeah.
so I'm talking about, for lack of better words, the website was ugly. It was ugly. And it was not going to bring the experience for the next level that she wanted to in order to be great in social media. If you want to be great in social media, people are going to check back on your website or even see if you have a website because they're going to be investing in you. If you do not have a website, it's automatically going to be an assumption in their mind, because I know some people have Dubsado forms. It's going to automatically have in their head like, oh, it's going to be a lower ticket than it is for someone that has a website. So it does position you more to charge higher when you have a website. But she did have a website, but it was fugly. And, I was like, hey, she did not want to move away from it. Didn't even have to be with me. I'm just like, get somebody else to do it. It doesn't even have to be me.
Yeah.
But update it, didn't want to do it, and pretty much it was stuck there. Then I have another one, coaching client. She's more in one-on-one coaching, higher ticket, right? Because we're now working on something one-on-one. And I said, hey, what do you think about pivoting in this one area? She was all for it. She understood it. She understood the assignment. She understood that what she was doing, she was too broad. We were niching more into like a certain space, and she understood where it was going. And she wasn't fearful of trying something different.
It's so true. It's so true. And I see that a lot as well with a lot of the clients that I have. And I think, again, like depending on if you're listening to this and you have a different service provider niche, I think one of the things that I find, which is why I said people get burned. People have tried different things. Most of the time, they tried something that was a group, or they tried something that was a course, or they tried some of those types of, financial apps. And they were like, it didn't work. I had an accountability, but it was a group call. And they told me to just do this and I did it, but it didn't work. Right. So like that's typically what I see. So they do get a little bit of like that fearful mentality when they find someone that's actually saying, no, I'm going to support you and help you. But it's personalized, it's one-on-one. Therefore, there's a different price point than you expect. So there's a lot of this like misconception, right? Which means that we have to do the work as well in our content and all of that stuff to make sure that we are weeding out those people who are stuck in that mentality of it has to be cheap in order for me to get results. And we're bringing in the people who are ready to get that strategy, really bend time, quantum leap, however you want to call it, to be able to have someone that's literally walking beside us to challenge us to do better things in our business and actually move forward in the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, but you're right about that. I mean, I remember I had a conversation about, we're in a trust recession, right? That's what they're saying. That's the term that people are using,
It's a very fair term.
right? A trust recession. What I think it's going on is, yes, people have gotten burned, so that they're being more conscious of where their investment are going. But also sitting down with people, okay, yeah, some people just want to throw money at stuff.
Yeah.
They just want to throw money and think that, oh, it's just gonna magically fall into place. And they don't want to do that work on, ooh, I gotta change my mindset. Ooh, I gotta actually do some of the work and ask a bunch of questions.
Mhm.
It's just a bunch of questions, but maybe understanding the concept more, or how have you? Because I guess in the past, that's why I tell people now. I say have a skill set that people are going to walk away with, that they know that
Yeah.
they're going to walk away with,
Mhm.
right? Instead of just being broad, like, oh, you're going to get more clients if you join this program, right? Because that's very broad. That doesn't work anymore, right? That's not
Mhm.
going to work.
Yeah.
Or and stuff like that. That's what I think is kind of like you said, like having content, a specific and a certain way.
Yeah. It's how that you're going to be able to bring in those clients who are ready for that transformation. Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing call.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing chat, amazing episode. I always like to hear those type of episodes of two women talking about business and what they've gone through. Like really, what they got. I've always been afraid to have those conversations. Like, oh, how will people judge me? Or how will?
Yeah, no, I've decided like, listen, there's too much fake, right?
Mm.
I made $1 million in 6 months with my business using these three simple steps. It's never three simple steps. It's never three simple steps.
Or that
Right?
one reel, just one reel got
Just one reel.
1,000 followers. Is usually the compounding effect of what they earn.
Yeah.
And that one.
And exactly. So
Mm.
I feel like we're missing authenticity. I know we've said that that's kind of a cliche phrase, but I really am like I've been pushing myself to act on it. So what does authenticity, what do you want to see in the marketplace? I want to see business owners talk about the fact that sometimes it sucks. I want to see business owners talk about the fact that sometimes they daydream about going back to a 9 to 5, but then they snap back in and go, nope, I love what I do. I, I want to see business owners who are real about the wins that they have with their clients, the things that they love about the life that they're creating for themselves, but be real about the yin and the yang of it all. It's not always sunny and rainbows over here. There's a little bit of everything, and it is the best journey I've ever been on, but also in times the hardest. And I think that that is ultimately like that's just a part of the journey. It's not for the faint of heart. No, we need to talk about it.
We do need to talk about it, and that's one of the reasons why. Like, I just had a call with one of my clients, and she was like, and she shows up in her business. I'm clapping my two fingers together because she's amazing. Clock it.
Yeah.
And she just said, you gotta, because I don't show up as much as her. Like she shows
Mhm.
up, and she just says, you got to lean into the fear, because she's also
Yeah.
a coach for women. And she's like, you just got to into the fear. And I find that to be ridiculously true. In entrepreneurship, if you're not going to lean into the fear of changing things up, of doing something different from what you're currently doing, of maybe, sticking to a strategy for a certain time period before you go to a new strategy, right?
That part. Mhm.
Some people think it's just social media, social media, social media, and they don't understand it's connections, it's networking, it's pitching, it's being said no to. It's
Mhm.
it's being brave enough to go towards the fear and stuff like that. And that's the part that people don't talk about.
No.
They make it like it's easy. Oh, I made like how you were saying, right?
I made $1 million on one reel, one post.
I'm
And
showing you
that
how
was
to
all
do
good.
it.
Yeah. That's it. And all of a sudden I'm a millionaire. It's easy and it's like no big deal. I just bought the house of my dreams. It is so much more that goes into
Right.
it.
And I think that's what it is. And that they lead people astray. People get burned because they didn't do it within that time frame as well. Like, oh, I thought this was gonna work. Right. But some people are great content creators and that's what they're really great at.
Yeah.
And then right. And then the other stuff like are you an influencer? Are you a content creator? Sometimes, okay, so let's do the strategy that would work for someone maybe as a coach instead of you trying to make all these crazy, you know, stuff. Let's do something that works within your business or something like that. But I mean, so much. It's so much.
Yeah.
But I did want these real conversations. What have you gone through? Right?
Mhm.
I love those conversations. And I feel like it's just sometimes interviews are just like, oh, what have you done in your business? And then instead of having I took the opportunity to have the conversation. I was like, we're already diving like that. Let's do it.
Let's talk about it. No, I think real conversations are needed. And anytime that you want to have that, I will be the first one to be like, here's where things were great. And here's where things I'm working on. And And let's
And
talk
it's
like
a
this.
fresh start. It's a fresh
Yeah.
start. Like, shoot, we've all gone through it, right? The ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the things that worked, the things that didn't. And I think one of the things that I'm learning is you got to protect your emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Because if you're having a nightmare client, guess what? Your business is going to suffer because
Mhm.
you're going to project that energy in other places. So how can you set up your services in a way that you're protecting your energy,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? Because that it's not about the amount, kind of. It's just like, okay, what's going to be, how much time you're going to spend, how much mental energy, the downtime you need off of that. So what's going to be, from what is on the market, what's relevant, right? That market research and stuff like that on that price point.
Yeah.
I feel like I talked a lot on this.
Oh, good. That's awesome. You're providing such amazing content. This is perfect.
It's just real conversations are needed, right?
They are. They are. We're missing that. So, yeah, I'm excited. Anytime you need me to come back and have like a real conversation for your listeners, your viewers,
Yes.
please welcome me back if you just need a dose of real life.
Yes, and check out Kimberly. She's amazing. We just aired the other episode and be aired what we did on our FD Live, which I think is amazing. And yeah, maybe we should do a monthly just what's going on now, girl.
What's going on?
Or
What's
quarterly.
happening? What's changing? Yeah. So yeah, definitely make sure you connect with me. I'm the same way. Imagine in the DMs as well. So if you DM me on Facebook, Instagram, you'll get the same type of realness because I understand how it feels to talk about money, money management in your business, and just be real about it because you deserve to understand what's going on. You deserve someone that's going to talk to you like a girlfriend would, not like someone who's going to be all bro finance on you and give you all these terms and that make you feel like you are like, wait, what? What did you just say? We need more realness in that space as well. So if you're looking for that, I'm your girl.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
I'll be here on the podcast.
All right. I love it.